This video is doing an unboxing of the Porter Cable drill press. There's the part number. PCXB620DP. What follows is a step-by-step assembly of the entire unit and then actually using it. I added a 3-inch bench vise to it, which I needed to fixture down some material, which you'll see. And I'll give you my final thoughts after all of that. So let's move on. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I believe this is a bench version. Quite sure it is, actually. I don't have much experience with Porter Cable outside of routers and equipment that's specific for use for doors. I like their routers a lot, their hand routers. I also bought this because it was in stock. And I didn't do a lot of research, but the name Porter Cable, like I said, is one that I trust, or I've had good luck with. And this is just consumer quality material. That's all I need for this project. I don't have a need to have anything more robust for, in terms of a drill press. At some point in the future, perhaps I will. I don't right now. I am aware of the very real possibility that this is going to turn into a fail and that we're going to need to come up with a plan B on this, because this material is not light. It's aluminum, but it's still pretty heavy. You know, maybe it's going to be coming up with a snap sort of latch on the dust skirt, holding it to the bottom of the dust collector orifice, whatever that part is called. So, first thing to do is look at the installation instructions. Tool safety, additional safety, electrical requirements, grounded plug, 110, 2 amps, so you know, a typical fuse ought to have no problem powering that. I will plug it in, you know, I don't expect to be tripping the fuse. It does have a wire guide here in terms of the gauge of wire in the extension cord if you're going to use an extension cord. And what's interesting about that is a lot of what we do is access hardware or low voltage hardware, and what's interesting, as an aside, the further away you are from the load to the power supply, the thicker the wire you need. And a lot of people might initially think, well, that's counterintuitive because there should be more resistance. But actually, and it's not really, for me, it's not a good analogy to use, but think of the diameter of a pipe or a straw. Think of a straw. If you've got just a tiny little straw and you're trying to, you know, take in a lot of liquid through a tiny straw, that's pretty challenging. You use a much bigger, they call them zombie straws, a much bigger, fatter, greater diameter straw. You can pull a lot more liquid. So the greater diameter of a wire, which is a smaller number, 18, 16, 14, even 12 gauge wire in your extension cord, the thicker the wire, the more copper or whatever the conductive material is that's in the cable, the thicker that is, the more electrons are in the wire. Therefore, the more electrons are engaged in the process of movement. And actually, it's the electrons kind of move backwards, because what happens is they they shift backwards in terms of the flow of current, because they're constantly, if your current's this way, they're constantly coming to hit the current, and it continues, the electrons flow in this fashion, even though your current's going in this fashion, so it's pretty neat. So the greater the diameter wire is more electrons, therefore more current can flow. So if you have a 1 amp, a 3.2 amp load, and you're 50 feet from the power supply, a fixed amount of power can be delivered through a circuit. Let's say it's a 15 or a 20 amp circuit. If you're 50 feet away, fine. If you're 250 feet away, that might be a problem, because the conductor may not be able to let enough electrons move, and that would cause an overheating, maybe a short, things of that nature. So you have to be mindful of distance from the power supply to the load, how many amps are going through there, and what gauge of wire you need. And any hardware, most hardware is going to have, or you'll be able to get your hands on, a wire chart. How many amps, the distance, therefore what gauge of wire you need to have for the conductor. I saw it and I thought I would mention it, so it's interesting, I suppose. I don't plan to be more than 25 feet away, so a very light-duty extension cord would work. Now, what I like about instructions when it comes to hardware, like door closers, good instructions list, here's what's in the box. So the first thing I do is make sure I have everything, because I don't want to do a IKEA situation and I've been there for 90 minutes and I'm missing one odd bolt that I need. They also tell you what you need to put it all together. Yeah, we'll assemble that as needed. So we've got the drill head here, the head assembly, the table assembly is here.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
Base is here. The feed handles, of which there are 3, 1, 2, 3. The chuck and key hardware is E, and I have that and that. Column assembly is F, well that's this. The hardware bag is going to have the lock handle, the crank handle, probably the lock handle, the worm gear, I would say that that's the worm gear, hex wrenches, of which there are 2, hex bolts, of which there are 3, rack. Oh, rack. Oh, that's here. It's already attached. Yes, it's attached. And then the rack ring, which is this. So this assembly apparently is done. So I've got all of G. H are a couple of AA batteries. And there is a light here. I can see the light bulb down in here. So I won't bother to show that to you, but it is there. So we've got everything on the table of contents. Now, know your drill press. I find it really handy to know the names for things so that when I'm reading the instructions, I know what they're referring to. So we have depth scale pointer, depth stop, on-off LED lights, light on-off LED lights, light switch, quill return, I'm not sure what a quill return is, quill return coil spring, LED light, rack ring, table lock handle, bevel lock bolt, okay. Yeah, I guess if you want to put this onto a, onto a bevel, you'll be able to do that. Our holes are going to be straight. Feed handles, of which there are 3. You can see them on the side of the tool. Motor pulley, spindle pulley. I don't expect to get underneath the head of that. Chuck key holder, pulley cover, belt tension lock knob, and be on the other side of that. Motor, hex head lock screws, on-off switch, safety, on-off switch with safety key, chuck, table, mounting holes, rack, column, table crank handle, table bracket. Okay, so, and then there's a glossary of terms. I'm going to skip over reading those. So it says it takes 25 to 35 minutes to assemble this. Okay, so let's get started. It says, let's get started with this. Assembling column to base. Position the base on a flat and stable work surface. Must be able to support 100 pounds. Okay. Place the column assembly 1 on the base. Now what's not clear to me is the orientation of the rack. And that's why it's handy to have that here, because it does show us where the rack is. Yeah, this rack can be moved around, so it doesn't actually matter. It's going to have to get repositioned, and that's certainly what one of the hex screws are for. So, place column assembly on the base. Align the 3 mounting holes of the column assembly to the holes of the base. Bag G, locate the 3 hex bolts from the parts bag. Place a hex bolt in each of the 3 holes in the column assembly and thread into the base, tighten with a 13mm wrench. This is where it would have been helpful to have assembled all the tools necessary. I will obtain a wrench. It says a 13mm wrench, so they're meaning a box wrench, but I doubt that I have a... I might have a 13mm box wrench. I doubt it. Got 2 of them down. And those holes aren't drilled really straight, or perfectly straight, but able to center it as best as possible. Okay, so we've got that step completed. Installing the table. Bag G. Install the table lock handle. The table lock handle is part 1 into the hole in the rear of the table bracket, which is here. Yeah, you've got a tapped hole on this side, so that's where that's going to go.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
Note, install the handle from left to right so it enters the non-threaded side of the table bracket first. Sure. Bag G. Insert the worm gear into the table crank handle hole 3. Okay. So worm gear is going to go through, yeah, through here and out here. Definitely, that's what it is. Definitely. Okay, so install the handle from left to right. Okay, insert the worm gear into the table crank handle hole from the inside of the table bracket. Make sure the worm gear meshes with the inside gear. It does. I can see it turning here when I rotate that. Only one way for it. Yeah, I'm just holding it in too far. Okay, looks good. Do not remove the lubrication from this worm gear, right? It's heavily lubricated in there. Place the rack 5 into the inside of table bracket 4. Yeah, for sure right now we're going to have to reposition this. I can see that. Position the rack into the inside of table bracket as shown in figure C. Aha, yeah, that makes sense. I guess what I try to do is to have a reality check understanding that it actually works correctly before I continue. No, I also like Delta as well. I have a Delta bench grinder. I'm very happy with how smooth it works. Slide the table with the rack onto the column. arrow pointing up because the orientation of the gears on the rack. Yeah, nowhere for that to go at this point. So I'd say that that's going to sit down, except it's probably going to need to be over here. Slide the table with the rack onto the column. We've done that. Engage the bottom of the rack with the lip of the column assembly. Yeah, got it. Tighten the table lock handle 1 to lock the table to the column assembly. Okay. Well, we've got that reasonably locked on there. Okay, it's locked. It doesn't rotate. Rack's got a small amount of play. Do not over tighten. No, we've not done that. Install the rack ring onto the column. That's the rack ring. So the top of the rack fits into the rack ring. Got it. To avoid column or collar damage, do not over tighten the set screw. Yeah, you could easily strip that out. That's what would happen. The bottom of the collar must not be pushed all the way down onto the top of the rack. Make sure the top of the rack is under the bottom of the collar and that there is enough clearance to allow the rack to rotate freely around the column. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, it makes sense. So you're going to loosen this and need to pivot this around, so this can't be too tight, and I do believe, I don't know, it might be okay, actually. It's not super tight. Yeah, we're good. Really good. Happy with that. Tighten the set screw using the wrench. Now install the table crank handle 8. And I already know what that is. Here it is. This is your table crank handle. Install this onto the worm gear shaft 9 on the side of the table bracket. Line up the flat side of the shaft with the set screw, which is here, in the crank handle, and tighten the screw with the 3mm hex wrench provided. Do not over tighten. Can do. Just like the collet on the spindle, you tighten it in just one little additional flex. Down smoothly, reasonably smoothly. Just not loving how, I mean, that's loose. Just not loving how that works. I'm sure it'll get smoother with time, but regardless, there probably won't be a lot of variation that's necessary in terms of height. Okay. Anyway, not a showstopper. Line up the flat side of the, okay, we've done that. Okay. Carefully lift the head, the business end, and slide it onto the column too. Make sure the head slides down over the column as far as possible. Align the head with the base. Tighten the 2 head locking set screws, which are 3. We're going to discover where those are before we do anything. On the right side of the head by using the provided 4mm wrench. There's oil on all of this naturally. Let's take a little bit of it off. Let's say that these are the 2 screws here and here. Looks right. Curiosity get the best of us right now. I did check to make sure that those screws were drawn in, and they were. As far down as it's going to go. So align it, sure. And then tighten it with the 4mm hex wrench. Install the feed handles, bag D. Locate the 3 feed handles in the loose parts bag. Thread each feed handle into the threaded holes on the hub assembly and tighten. So that's pretty easy. That's these pieces. I don't have much left to install after this. Got the chuck and that's about that. I'm not loving that. What is that sound? Oh. Okay. Just going to leave those hand tight. sure what the total travel is of this. It's not going to be a problem. Oh, I can tell you what it is. It's 2-inch. There's a gauge on the left side. Before any assembly of the chuck and arbor to the drill press head, clean all the mating surface with a non-petroleum-based product such as alcohol or lacquer thinner. Any oil or grease used in the packing of these parts must be removed, otherwise the chuck may come loose during installation. There is oil in here, and I'm going to pause this video and clean that according to the way that it says, because I'll need to leave the room to do that. Alcohol or lacquer thinner. Yeah, I've got lacquer thinner, so let's do that.
If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video.
On. Clean out the tapered hole in the chuck with a clean cloth and a non-alcohol based cleaner. Wipe clean all the oil residue, any dirt grime thoroughly. It's actually clean. Clean tapered surfaces of the spindle. That's this. Note to be sure that there are no foreign particles sticking to the surfaces. The slightest piece of dirt or oil residue on any of these surfaces will prevent the chuck from seating correctly. This will cause the drill chuck and bit to wobble. Open the jaws of the chuck by rotating the chuck sleeve clockwise. They're already open. They were open. Unlock the table lock handle and rotate the table away from the bottom of the chuck. So loosen the table, rotate that away. Insert the chuck onto the spindle, pushing upwards all the way. Now let's read before we do anything else. Using a rubber mallet or a hammer and a block of wood, tap the chuck onto the spindle firmly. Okay. Turn the feed handles to lower the chuck to the lowest position. Place a ball joint separator above the chuck and tap it lightly with a hammer or rubber mallet to cause the chuck to drop from the spindle. Insert the chuck onto the spindle, pushing all the way up. Use a rubber mallet or a hammer and a block of wood. Tap the chuck onto the spindle firmly. Okay. Turn the feed handles to lower the chuck to the lowest position. Place a ball joint separator above the chuck and tap it lightly with a hammer or a rubber mallet to cause the chuck to drop from the spindle. Why would we do that? Okay, so I guess what they're saying is, should you need to remove the chuck, that's how you'll go about doing it. Apparently the way that this goes on is that it's just a tapered spindle, and you're force fitting it onto this, and that's not unusual or unheard of. There's hardware that goes together this way. There's hardware that is a splined shaft that you have to seat onto the arm correctly. You have to get it right the first time. If I think of it, I'll mention it. So let's grab our rubber mallet, which I do have. Yeah, so the ball joint separator is... Now, let's get this seated and then we'll talk about what that is. Now, I understand why it's got to be free of particulate in there, that's why it's so important to clean that. Good enough, I would say. I broke my shopping list. Turn the feed handles to lower the chuck to lowest position. Place a ball joint separator above the chuck and tap it lightly to cause the chuck to drop from the spindle. Would have to go in here, and you're just going to tap it off. I suppose you would remove that if you needed to replace the chuck. You may have stripped it, needs to be replaced. So I've never had to do that on any tool that I've owned, but I can see why that would be the case. Yeah, we're looking good. Mounting the drill press to work. Yeah, drilling holes. Got it. So what they're saying is, mount it to a workspace, obviously. I'm going to think about doing that. Hardware is not supplied for that purpose. It's basically long carriage bolts, as they're showing here. It's not a big deal. Bevel drilling. So mounting it to the table. Now, talking about features of this, let's just go with it, I suppose. Yeah, it moves. Can't say I'm too thrilled with it, but this was $180, so not too excessively expensive, so I'm not really expecting the greatest of the greatest. All right, well, let's move through the rest of the instructions just so that we're not skipping over anything that's important. Bevel drilling. A bevel scale has been included, and it's here. I can see it on the side, and I would imagine we're going to have to loosen something for that. A bevel scale has been included to measure approximate bevel angles. If precision is necessary, and by the way, we are at 35 minutes, and it said 25 to 35 minutes. Okay, so a bevel scale is included to measure approximate bevel angles. If precision is required, a square or other measuring tool should be used to position the table. Sure, you'll bevel it, you'll use a square set up on the angle that you want. Tighten the nut on the locking pin 3. Yeah, that's down here. There's a nut here that I can see that you'll have to loosen in order to tip this table. Just no need to do it. Set it to the desired angle, retighten the bolts. Got it. Spindle. Rotate the feed handles clockwise. So here, okay, we rotate these handles and we can see how far down we're going. Returns back up under spring bias. Spindle quill. Rotate, I'll have to look up the word quill. I'm not familiar with what it applies to here. Chuck and move it front to back. Rotate the feed handles clockwise to lower the spindle lowest position. Hold the chuck and move it front to back. If there's any excessive play, proceed with the following adjustments. Down. The chuck doesn't move. I mean, I'm satisfied with that, but there's no excessive play. If there was, loosen the lock nut 1, located on the right side of the drill press with a 13mm wrench. Turn the screw to, yeah, there's a screw inside of here that you're going to adjust this. There's no play with this. I would imagine that any play is going to cause the spindle to wobble. It says a little play in the spindle is normal. Tighten the lock nut. Okay, quill return spring. The operation here must be the quill, and the quill return spring has to be on this side, would be my guess. Yeah, it is. There's an assembly here with the quill remove spring. Do not remove the center nut. Okay. Belt tension. We'll know that it's. We'll know what it looks like when we start it. I'm assuming the belt is tensioned correctly. Open the pulley cover. To unlock the belt tension, turn the belt tension knob. Okay. Open the pulley cover. Well, this is the pulley cover, but if that's a knob, I'm not sure. Oh, okay, it's just a snap. Yeah. So this belt looks really nice and tight. I'm not even going to bother to show that to you. The belt's tight. That just snaps down. So this is going to be how to operate the tool. Belt tensioning, installing the batteries. Open the battery cover 1, which is All right, well, it's, I guess, okay. So this is the belt tensioning knob is what I've got here. Tighten it to keep the motor in position. Okay. Install the batteries. Those are on the opposite side. Here, from what I can tell, this snaps. There we go. Couple of batteries. It says be sure to use batteries with a 1.5 volt. AA batteries, AAA batteries, they're all 1.5 volt. So I would say that this is a 3 volt light because there are two 1.5 volt batteries. So they would be wired in series. When you connect the batteries end to end, it's additive. So batteries in series are additive. So if you've got two batteries in your remote or in the light, two AA's or two AAA's, it's a 3 volt system. If you had two batteries wired in parallel, two AA batteries, it would be a 1.5 volt system. The difference there is how many amp hours you'll get. When you put batteries together in series, the voltage is additive. And let's say, for the sake of argument, that one of these batteries will last 9 months, normal use. If you took two batteries and wired them in parallel, in this case, you would need 4 batteries wired in parallel to achieve 3 volts, but you would then double your amp hour. So your 9 months would theoretically become 18 months. That's, if you ever look at your batteries and they're stacked end to end, that's how many volts per battery, you add them together. Okay, another low voltage talk. Basic drill press operation, don't mix old batteries and new. Now, they give you information in terms of the RPM. Forgive me, that's going to be really important. In the sense of, I don't want to drill anything at the wrong RPM, because that's just pure science. So we're definitely set to 610 RPM, so a very slow RPM. Because I can see how our motor has the battery, the belt's on the lowest part of the pulley on the motor side and the largest. So we're at a very low RPM. I'll change it if necessary. I don't believe it will be. Yeah, it says right here on the underside of the cover. I don't believe you can see that. But anyway, there's a label right here, and it's in the manual. Oh, there's a drilling speed table as well. That's awesome. So, boy, they want me ramping up the speed, that's for sure. Wood, aluminum, zinc, brass, yeah, 2800, for wood. The only time you'd use 610 is for iron or steel. So they're assuming you're going to be drilling, steel with this right away. On-off switch. The on-off switch has a removable safety key. Yeah, for sure. Oh, here it is. Yeah, apparently, this front part is going to come out. Pull out lock. Yeah. So now it's not going to work. You don't want somebody using the tool, you take this little plastic part out and take it with you. We'll leave that in. Rocker switch for the light is what we just snapped off. Great. Installing drill bit and chuck. We'll do that when we're getting ready to drill. Drill into a specific depth, drill a hole. Basic operation. Fixturing material down. Yeah, I'm going to have to think about how I'm going to fixture this down because I don't want, I'm going through the trouble of a drill press. I'm not going to freehand it at this point, so I'm probably going to get a couple of basic compression clamps here and just hold that down so when I'm drilling straight. There's a drill press vise. That's a separate item which is not included, which would be really nice to have. I'm going to look into that. Drill press vise. And that's it. Then after that, it's maintenance. So what we're going to do, before we get on to the business of actually doing some drilling, let's just plug it in to make sure it works. Light first, huh? All right, batteries work. Yeah, it's nice because it shines right down here. Nice. Spindle is nice and straight. All right, it works. Next part of this video, we're going to figure out how to fixture and hold that down. Let's move on.
If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video.
Okay, so we've got the vise here. It's been admittedly a few months since I last worked on this project. So we're picking it up a bit flat-footed. Palmgren low-profile drill vise. Okay, great. Sounds like what we need. And I'm going to use the drill press on a project right now. Oh yeah, this looks nice. This is a Palmgren 3-inch low-profile vise, 9612303. Let's see what this looks like here now. Oh yeah. Yeah. The issue, I have to hang that off a bit. Now, I wonder, yeah, I think the bolts I have are going to work for this project. The issue, though, is I've got to get this pull handle put in here. That might work. And a couple of pieces of wood to hold. Oh, by the way, this is the pull handle. We're going to be drilling drilling and tapping 1/4 holes in here for this. Probably put it on right like this. Should be good. I have some, what I believe are just 1/4 carriage bolts with some washers. Just want to hold it on. Yeah, it'll be fine to hold this in place. Not ideal, but not the ideal fastener. I will do the proverbial tightening up on this. I think I recovered these carriage bolts from a job, from a crate actually, that a Becker pump came in on. And heck, I'm just going to use them. I've got 8, so I'll use 8. Okay, so putting on the last bolt now. I've got 8 on here. Like I said, I had 8. Well, why not just put them on? I'm going to go grab a socket and a crescent. See how we're looking on this. I think we got lucky right the first time. Yeah, we're good. Used to use that socket, that same size on a prior project. We're going to leave them slightly loose because I'll have to reposition this depending on the thickness of the wood that I come up with. This is the 3-inch size, which I imagine to be the jaw capacity, which I guess would be nice to have a larger draw capacity. Don't really know if it's necessary for my application, but we'll find out as we test this. Okay, all these bolts are almost snug. Now we can get a couple of pieces of wood so we can clamp this down into where we need it to be. Nice and steady. I think the first thing we'll do is we'll bring our drill bit. I don't recall the 13/64 maybe for a 1/4 20. Don't quote me on that, I just don't remember. I believe that's accurate. There's a spring-loaded tip on this chuck key, which I like a lot. Helps pull the tool out, actually. Tightening it on all three sides. Great. A couple of sets through. Allen wrenches came with the bench vise, obviously for accessing parts and whatnot on it. Okay, let's find a couple of pieces of wood for this. Or I suppose cardboard would be okay as well, because we just have to hold it in place. Got a nice couple of pieces of block wood here that are just really the right size, or a good size anyway. Oh yeah, that'll be just dandy. Okay, so what we have to do now I want to set the amount of rotation on the handle so I know that I'm going to the right depth. A 1/2 inch drilling depth would be completely adequate, and we have lots of room in this pull handle, so we have no trouble with depth.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
So now, I have to mark off where I want my holes to be on this, and then we'll drill one. Getting to a point of incredible accuracy is just simply not needed, so I will use a standard tape measure, and then I will center punch it. So this is 3/4, so we have to be at 3/8. I believe that they have laser sights for drill presses, and if that's the case, I'm absolutely going to investigate that. I've seen them. I believe I've seen them at least. It would be nice. Yeah, I'll get the drill started. Good. Okay, so let's plug it in. Let's see how this works. First time turning this on, I think. Beautiful. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We'll get to it. Oh yeah, really good, really easy, not a problem. Drill's really smooth, really straight. Not going too fast. I don't really want to heat up the aluminum very much, so it will weld itself.
There's our maximum depth. I believe the term is just like downtown. Let's pull this piece out. We'll take the chips that are on there. Pretty. Excellent. Let's bring in the next piece. Pardon me, the same piece, just second side. I like it. Tighten everything up. Hit the switch. On another eighth. Two really nice holes drilled. Bare hand, the bit's nice and cool. I mean, you can tell that it's not room temperature. The shank is room temperature. The cutting end is pretty cool. Okay, there we go. Didn't take very long. So my final thoughts are the assembly was fairly easy and straightforward. I'd never put one of those together and it didn't take very long at all. The action of using it was nice and smooth and it came down as I would expect it to. I don't like the base in the sense that it's not really stable. But when you think about what this thing costs and the range that you get, the multiple speed, for very light duty use in a shop setting such as mine, I think it's really good in terms of a tool and a purchase decision if you're able to buy it really inexpensively. I don't recall what I paid for it. Actually, let's look it up just so you have an idea of reference. Let's take a look. So I will be the first to admit that I did not comparison shop this. I bought it on Instacart and had it delivered to me because I needed it immediately, which ended up not being true because I ordered it in October of 2023, middle of October, and I really didn't get to use it until April of 2024. I paid $190, $189.79. That's Instacart. That is literally going to Lowe's to buy it and deliver it to me. So I'm thinking that you will do better than I did on this tool. And I would say if you're able to pick this up, I think I've seen it online for $170. If you need a drill press, and you're not so concerned about, to me, the table was a little wiggly. I didn't like that. If I were to use a drill press very often, I would not use this. I would spend several hundreds of dollars to get something really bulletproof. But for very light duty use, I think it's a home run. And I hope this video was of some help to you. Thank you very much for watching, and please like and please subscribe.
Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.